So my name is Alex Solomon. I'm one of the co-founders of PagerDuty. I'm also CTO. And I thought I'd try something a little bit different this time. I thought I'd take one of our actual incidents that have happened at PagerDuty. This is like a real life incident. And start looking through the timeline and look through everything that happened with that incident. And then in the process of doing so, look at how we run incidents at PagerDuty and see what we can kind of take away from that in terms of process, in terms of roles, in terms of essentially attacking, resolving, and debugging and diagnosing an incident faster. So I have some takeaways for you guys. But first of all, this is a true story. Our team is split between San Francisco and Toronto, and this actually happened on January 6th. And not all the details are included. The incident lasted just about an hour, and I only have 20 minutes here, so we're not going to go through all the tedious play-by-plays. So to start off, the services that were affected in this case were a service called Web to Kafka, which basically what it does is it monitors our database, and when something changes in our database, not everything, but certain things that we care about get published over to Kafka. And the reason why it's called Web to Kafka is because we still have a web monolith, and we're splitting that out into microservices, but this still applies to our web monolith and our MySQL database. And then the other one is the incident log entry service. So this is the service that basically stores and is the system of record for all of the log entries that happened on an incident. So these run on top of Docker, and at the time we were using Mesos and Marathon to manage the Docker containers, and of course on top of Linux. And like I said, the two services, and you can see here, it's actually a screenshot, and you can see this is a incident, and all the log entries that happen on the timeline of an incident are the log entry service that I'm talking about. Real quick, the people involved. So I didn't include any last names, but we have Eric is the incident commander. I'll talk about all these roles as we go, of course. Ken is the deputy, Peter's the scribe, and Luke is the communications liaison. And then we also have a bunch of subject matter experts, because this incident for us was a SEV 2, which did impact customers, and it had a degraded performance for customers. I'll talk about what that means. So we have a bunch of folks from a few different teams, including Core, who's basically the team that's responsible for running Mesos and providing services to other engineers internally. We had SRE on it, we had IAM People, one of the engineering teams, Mobile, IAM Data, another engineering team, and EM, which is event management. So jumping right in. This started with David, who's one of our subject matter experts, invoking IC Page, and that is in Slack. He went to the incident command war room, and what that ended up doing is, this is our chat bot, it ended up paging the incident commanders. And the way we set up that rotation is, Eric is primary incident commander, Ken is the backup, and Peter is shadowing, so he's training to become an incident commander. So you can see that we have a new incident in PagerDuty. We were able to use our own tool in this case. And then David pointed out Web to Kafka is down and he doesn't know what's going on, so he escalated it up. So first of all, he got paged himself on a SEV 3, and then he started debugging it. He took maybe 10-15 minutes to do so, and then he couldn't figure it out, escalated it to SEV 2 to bring in the additional forces. So the other thing that happened here in the timeline is Eric's came on the call. He got paged as the IC, and he said, okay, I'm taking over becoming the incident commander. So you can see here that, like I said, David kicked off the major incident process, and Eric took on that IC role because he was the IC primary. So breaking into what is an incident commander, this is essentially the wartime general. It's the decision maker, the principal decision maker during a major incident. So the goal of this role is to drive the incident to resolution quickly and effectively. It's about gathering data, so working with all these subject matter experts who know more about the domain than this generalist does, to debug, diagnose, and fix the system. It's about listening to the team, so the team can provide suggestions, action items, things that they can do to diagnose and repair. And it's about decision making. So this is the person that's ultimately responsible, and their decision is final. And then of course it's all about acting and quick action. So the way incident commanders do their job at PagerDuty is they don't actually go log into systems and start messing with command lines and things like that. They actually delegate a lot of the actions to the other folks who are on the call. And one thing that's important to mention here is you're seeing the chat transcript. There's also a voice channel, which is a lot more high bandwidth. Folks are talking. We actually record all of these because we can use them for training purposes. So you're just seeing the more kind of condensed view that happens on chat. So breaking back into the timeline. So Ken, who's actually the deputy, and I'll talk about what that means, looped in Renee, who's one of our subject matter experts. Evan, basically he's one of our SRE on call. He volunteered to help because he saw something was going on. He also noticed another component of our system, the infrastructure health module, might be affected. And then Priyam volunteered from EM, she got paged. And so you can see here, Ken took the deputy role, and then other subject matter experts got into the incident. So just to break into another aside, what is this deputy that I'm talking about? Well, it's essentially the sidekick, like the right-hand person for the incident commander. So we always page 2 at a time, the primary and the secondary. This person monitors the status of the incident. So if they determine that, oh shit, it's Sev 2 right now, but it should actually be escalated to a Sev 1, they pay attention to that. They're prepared to loop in other people as needed. So if you need a subject matter expert and they weren't automatically paged, they will go do that. And they're also responsible for providing regular updates to business and or exec stakeholders. This is actually a really important role because I don't know if you guys have been on an incident call and you've had the case where the CEO or some exec jumps into the call and starts asking a whole bunch of questions trying to quote unquote add value because they think that coming on there and putting pressure on the team is going to help. It actually does the opposite. But it is important that the execs and other business stakeholders know what's going on. They don't know the play-by-play technical details. They just need to know what's the impact, who's on it, are people actually on it, can I trust that the team's working on this, and what's the estimated time to fix, and keep the updates coming. So maybe every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, whatever works for you guys. So going back to the timeline, you can see Ken is, he's also taking on a second role here, which is scribing, because the incident is just kicking off. So he is, one of the things that we do is he actually records what is the major action items that are happening with the incident. So you can see that Eric, which is the IC, is asking questions, and David's trying to help and respond to those actions. Zaina is another, she's our mobile on call, so she jumped in saying that we're seeing problems with the mobile app, it's crashing. JD, one of our other subject matter experts, he owns the incident log entry service, so that one of the services that I pointed out, and he's saying that ILEs, or these log entries, are not being generated because the service cannot query this web to Kafka thing. And then Renee also jumped in. She's the IM people, and she is in charge of the notification pipeline. She says notifications are okay, it's not a sub-1. Peter, he actually at this point volunteered to be the scribe because Ken was doing double duty, and then basically kind of started putting in this commentary into the timeline. So like I said, Ken started as both the deputy and the scribe. There's a lot of discussion around what's the customer impact in the middle there, and then Peter takes over as scribe. So now let's jump into what is the scribe. So this is the record keeper. It's about adding notes to chat rooms when findings occur and when significant actions are taken. It's also about adding to-dos to the chat room. So if someone thinks of something that they should remember later, or some action item that should happen after the incident is over, that's recorded as a to-do. And then it's also about monitoring tasks and action items that are assigned by the IC to other team members. So for example, the IC might say something like, hey, Evan, do this for me and report back in 5 minutes. And when you're doing that with 5, 6, 7, 8 different people, you can lose track of that. So this is like another role that the scribe can help with. So going back to the timeline, so you can see here, Peter's scribing. So you can see Eric's asking what's the customer impact. Renee chimes in with, we can't see the incident details. I mean, the page is still rendering, but it's erroring out. You can see here no new incident log entries can be created, and there's an error message in the UI. And then Eric asked about the communications rep. So this is Luke, and asked Luke, okay, this is a Ceph2, we've been in Ceph2 for a while. We should probably communicate to customers. So please compose a tweet. That's one of our mechanisms to communicate to customers. We also have a status page. They go out at the same time. And then Luke chimes in. He's the customer communications liaison, and he put the actual tweet message in the chat room. And then this was approved by the IC. So you can see here that like I said, the IC asked the customer liaison to communicate to customers. And the message was sent out. Now the communications liaison, so this is the link to the customer. It's about monitoring the customer and business impact. So not just about communicating, but keeping track of what's going on with the customer. And how many tickets are we seeing? How many support requests are we seeing? How many people are complaining on Twitter? And how many people are like chatting with us via live chat? How many people are calling in? All those things. And also, potentially, if you're at a larger scale, you're not going to talk directly to customers all the time, unless you have a status page or social media, but you can also communicate to sales reps, to customer support, to let them know what's going on. So another layer removed. And then sometimes the customer liaison will actually take that role of providing the stakeholder updates, that whole exec or business communication that I was talking about. So going back to the timeline, you can see that David added a case, that's how you pronounce that weird name, to the incident, and then asked if there's a runbook for Mesos, because one of the problems that happened with this incident is we were pretty new to Mesos at the time. Case was like the resident expert. He wasn't actually on call. David was the guy who was on call from that team. So they had to loop him in because he knew more about the problem than the folks on the call. So they didn't actually even have a runbook for this, which is something that became inherent in the postmortem, of course. So you can see that we paged the Mesos expert who was not on the call. We recorded a to-do to actually create this runbook covering this case after the incident was over. And then Case jumped in. You can see he's doing his thing. He's out and about, and he actually got paged, and it was nice enough to jump into the incident. And then Eric, the IC, asked Case to actually jump on the call bridge as well. So you can see Peter busy away scribing here. We're talking about kicking new hardware, like actually shutting down the servers and restarting them from scratch. And then the way our Mesos setup works is we have 3 slaves, and we also have like the central controller for it. And we can see one of the slaves is reachable, the other 2 are not. We only have 3. And we're seeing some problems with memory exhaustion, just running out of memory. These are all kind of getting recorded as you go. The great thing about recording this stuff is someone new to the incident can kind of scroll it and read and get the context quickly as well. So looking forward, in this case, we have only 3 slaves, and we actually have another cluster. So we were running this on US West 2. We actually have another cluster running on US West 1. So we were talking about restarting the slaves or restarting Marathon, which is the controller for Mesos. And then notice that there's this out-of-memory killer that kicked in on the slave 01. So what that means is if the process runs out of memory, it's like a C group problem, then the OOM actually will restart it. So there you go. Case suggested to restart the slaves. Rebooting slave 02 and slave 03. Now slave 01 goes down. So we don't know what the hell's going on. So we're talking about here, this is that actual suggestion of should we just flip everything to US West 1 and just give up on US West 2? Is it like time to flip to a different data center? That's a pretty big move. It's risky and time consuming, but it was suggested in the room there. So you can see there that Eric's actually going down this path of flipping data centers, and then slave 02 gets restarted and is alive, so they put that plan on hold for 2 minutes. And I'm getting to the punchline pretty quick. So. All right, so slave 02 is working. Actually, slave 02 tries to start but dies with kernel panic, code 137. So that's pretty interesting. So 137 means that it kept getting killed by Womb. Womb kept killing the Docker container continuously, over and over and over. So it kept running out of memory, it kept getting killed. So what happened next is they suggested, well, why don't we increase the memory limit on this process? So configure Marathon to allow more memory. At the time, it was configured for 512 megabytes. So you can see that the proposed action here was to actually increase the limit from 512 to 2 gig. And then reboot the other servers that are in the same state. So, and then Luke chimes in with the customer impact. So the IC asked him, hey, what's going on with the customer? He said there are 4 tickets so far filed through Zendesk, and then there's also 2 customers engaging with us on chat, so 6 tickets total. And then here we go, Web to Kafka. So they actually did that proposed action, and now Web to Kafka appears to be running fine. Looks like everything's kind of recovering. Notifications are going through just fine, and the log entry service is starting to progress finally and starting to read stuff that's published onto Kafka. So, that recovery message. So essentially, this is a pretty interesting problem that we ran into, so I'll give you guys the punchline. This was done in the postmortem afterwards, but we noticed an increase in traffic, which caused Web to Kafka to increase its memory usage. This caused the Linux killer to kill the process. Then Marathon immediately restarted, and it ramped up the memory really fast, and then killed it again, and it just got stuck in this loop. But here's even more interesting. More interestingly, after doing this restart kill cycle over and over and over, we actually hit a race condition in the kernel, which caused the kernel panic, and that's why the host was dying. That's why we kept seeing these hosts die over and over and over. All the services obviously were hosted, so you can see that. So it's a pretty interesting problem that we kind of faced. We debugged it afterwards. So one of the things that's important to notice is that when you are in the thick of an incident, when you're at wartime, you don't care necessarily about the long-term fix or how do we re-architect the system, how do we figure out how to make Mesos work better. What you care about immediately at that time is let's stem the bleeding, let's resolve the issue, we'll figure out the long-term solution later. So that's what the postmortem is for. So just to summarize all the different roles that we've seen in that process. So of course the incident commander, this is the most important role. It's critical to fast decision making. Of course it takes practice and it takes experience. Something where you actually want to see a few incidents, you want to partake in a few incidents as a subject matter expert, or a lot of incidents as a subject matter expert before you take the reins as an IC. And you can shadow, of course. Another one is the deputy. This is that kind of the backup IC. So the right-hand person, they loop people in, and they just help the incident commander. They can actually take over for the IC for long-running incidents, because the IC job is actually pretty stressful and draining. They're also responsible for that business and exec stakeholder communication, which is really critical, because you don't want the execs to start jumping in on the call. They won't understand what's going on, and they're not going to have any value. In fact, they're going to hurt things. And then the scribe. So this is about keeping track of that timeline, recording everything, and making sure that all the action items are followed up on time. And then the documentation that they produce is very useful in terms of reconstructing that timeline for the postmortem. And then finally, the communications liaison. So this is the person that's keeping track of the customer impact, potentially the business impact, depending on the type of application that you're running, and then also communicating that status to customers directly via status page or via social media, and then also potentially, if it's larger scale, communicating to the people on the front line. So that could be customer support, it could be sales, anyone who has that direct link to the customer. And I don't have time to talk about the postmortem, but one last thing that I want to leave you guys with is the PagerDuty incident response process. We've actually open sourced this, and it is available, including the entire process that we use and some training materials to kind of get you guys up to speed. So that's at response.pagerduty.com. So and you can also do pull requests. It's open source. That's kind of the whole idea. It's a community project. So that's all I have. Thank you.